The scent of roasted espresso and fresh pastries lingered in the air of Café Lumière, where the walls were dressed in velvet drapes and soft jazz whispered from the speakers. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the arched windows, casting gold over marble floors and linen-covered tables. It was a place for the elite, a cafe that didn't serve coffee so much as it served status. At table 7, near the large bay window, sat a girl, no more than 10 years old, thin and composed, her straight posture a quiet echo of refinement. She wore a pale blue dress that whispered wealth in every fold. Her hands, small and tentative, moved across the tabletop, searching, feeling, hoping. There was no menu, not for her. Her fingers brushed the polished surface once more, then curled into her lap. Her sunglasses, slightly oversized, covered the scars of fear she couldn't hide. She whispered, just loud enough for the polished silver spoon beside her to hear, "Mommy, come back soon. Please come back soon." Her voice was steady, but it trembled, like porcelain trying to hold back a storm. Behind the counter, wiping down a tray of untouched wine glasses, Jade Robinson paused. She had heard the voice, heard the ache. 26 years old, dark-skinned, athletic build, hair wrapped in a practical bun. Jade moved like someone who had weathered too many storms to waste time fearing the next. She wasn't just a waitress. The rain had returned by the time Jade reached her apartment, more a converted shoebox than a home, with walls thin enough to hear the arguments from the couple next door and a ceiling fan that wheezed like an asthmatic cat. On the coffee table sat her resignation notice, already crumpled at the corners, as if even paper couldn't bear the weight of disappointment. Beside it, an eviction notice lay like a threat in red ink. The electric bill mocked her from across the room. Her phone rang. She answered without checking. "Danny?" Her brother's voice, 16 and impossibly calm for someone who had been blind since he was 5, came through the speaker. "You okay?" Jade tried to keep her voice light. "Just a regular day in paradise, you know, jobless, broke, evicted." "You helped a kid. That counts." The black car that came to collect Jade at 6 a.m. was more spaceship than automobile. Sleek, silent, and trimmed in leather that still smelled like money. The driver didn't speak, just opened the door, nodded, and drove through streets still soaked from last night's rain. She didn't speak either. Her thoughts were too loud. Daniel had smiled for the first time in weeks when she told him about the audition. His fingers had gone straight to the piano, as if hearing the news had reawakened a sleeping fire inside him. But Jade's heart was heavy. This wasn't a gift, it was bait. And she was walking straight into the trap. The Bennett estate emerged like a fortress from the mist, an architectural symphony of stone and glass perched on a hill above the city. Jade had only seen homes like this in magazines. Now she was walking through its wrought iron gates as if she belonged there, which she didn't. Not yet. Jade didn't sleep that night. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling of her new apartment inside the Bennett estate, the USB still warm from the laptop. The evidence was overwhelming and horrifying. Clara hadn't just been blinded by a moment of distraction. She'd been imprisoned in that darkness by her own mother. And the worst part? Clara didn't suspect a thing. Or did she? The next morning, as sunlight spilled through the silk curtains of Clara's room, the girl sat cross-legged on her carpet, brushing the edge of a tactile astronomy chart Jade had brought her. "Jade," she asked softly, "do you think people can hide behind love?" "What do you mean?" Clara traced the outline of a star. "Like, say they love you, but they keep things from you anyway, to protect you. Is that still love?" Jade walked over and sat beside her. "I think, if love makes you lie, then it's not love, it's fear." Clara turned her face toward Jade. "That's what I thought." There was no accusation in her voice, just a quiet, growing awareness. And Jade knew then. Clara felt it. Somewhere deep inside, the girl already suspected. Later that day, Victoria appeared unannounced in Jade's quarters. No knock, no warning, just a shadow at the door, tall and cold. "You've been asking questions," she said. Jade didn't deny it. "I found a folder in Clara's closet." Of course she had. Jade hadn't hidden it again. "You left it on purpose," Victoria accused. "No," Jade said. "Clara showed it to me." Victoria's jaw clenched. That folder was sealed. That information was sealed. And that child was silenced by you. Victoria moved so fast Jade barely saw it. The billionaire crossed the room and slammed a folder onto the table. Inside, legal documents, an updated contract, ownership clauses, non-disclosure terms, and a new offer. 40% partnership in the Bennett Foundation for Visually Impaired Children. Complete authority over its operations. The weeks that followed Clara's decision moved like an uncertain dawn, slow, tentative and fragile. The procedure had gone smoothly. Doctors said the results would take time, but even as the days passed, something more profound was already shifting. Clara began seeing the world not with her eyes, but through the widening crack in the cage her mother had built around her life. And Victoria? She disappeared. Not physically, emotionally. She was there, at the estate, at the hospital, but distant, quiet. No longer the invincible CEO who commanded silence with a glance. She began to avoid mirrors and Clara's voice. Jade watched it unfold like a psychologist in her former life might observe. Autumn bled into the Bennett estate like a soft revolution. Golden leaves coated the marble steps. Wind danced through the orchard trees, rustling their branches with secrets. Inside the mansion, warmth replaced silence. The air no longer echoed with tension. It hummed with quiet life. But not everything healed in harmony. Victoria Bennett remained a paradox. She began attending Clara's therapy sessions religiously, yet sat in silence, rarely speaking. She spent more time at home than the office, yet that night the Bennett mansion felt different. Not grand, not powerful, human. Soft laughter echoed down the halls as children from the foundation played hide-and-seek through corridors once silent as tombs. Staff smiled without glancing over their shoulders. The air was no longer ruled by tension, it breathed. In the piano room, Clara curled up beside Daniel, listening as he played a lullaby her ears had memorized long before her eyes ever could. In the study, Jade stood across from Victoria Bennett, two women from different worlds, forever connected by one child and one irreversible truth. "I used to think I could buy my way out of anything," Victoria admitted, sipping tea without its usual. 6 months later, autumn painted the Bennett estate in hues of copper and gold. The garden was alive with rustling leaves and laughter. Dozens of children, some blind, some partially sighted, played among sculptures designed to be seen by touch. Curved stone, velvet textures, brass stars etched with braille. Clara's art.